All right, g'day everybody. I'm Lockie from Valhalore.
Hi everyone, I'm Anthony from Valhalore. We play symphonic folk metal. We're Brisbane, and we're from Brisbane, Australia.
Beautiful, guys. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having us. It's a
Thanks for
pleasure
having
to be
us.
here.
Pleasure as usual, guys. So, Valhalla released your second album, Beyond the Stars, on April the 11th, which isn't far off now. So, how are you feeling about it?
Just absolutely thrilled after waiting for 4 years to release this music. It's pretty surreal that we're finally near the finish line.
I bet.
Yeah, it's been a just a roller coaster of different feelings, I suppose, and I just want it out now, and it's still like, oh man, there's still 9 days to go. But they'll be here soon enough.
Nice. So, can you dive into the album a bit more deeply for us from a musical point of view and what you were going for with it?
Yeah, sure. Well, in terms of, I guess, the themes of the album, it describes a person's journey from the beginning of their life to the end of their life. And each song kind of deals with the different highs and lows, ups and downs, different emotions that one would experience throughout their life. And each song kind of represents those different moments.
Okay.
And then at the end of the album, the final song really deals with what happens to you after we die, and can we become something greater than ourselves. So in that regards, the album is a bit of a concept album, and it's cyclic. And each of the songs that we have written pertains to this journey of someone's life experiences.
Oh, that's pretty deep, guys. Where'd you pull that from?
Lachlan?
Look, I think I was waiting for it. I was waiting for it. Yeah, I think just given the time frame that this album was written in, and all of the experiences that we all have to draw from our own personal lives. I mean, for lack of a better term, this was our COVID album, so a lot of the anxieties and doubts that a lot of people faced during the pandemic and the lockdowns and things like that, kind of permeated the lyrics and the thought process around the time of this writing. And, as we've said a few times now to each other, looking back at this time in our history as a band, we didn't know if we were ever going to get on a stage again. We didn't know if anyone was going to hear these new songs or this album. We didn't know what the future held. So again, we're just grateful that we were able to kind of turn that negativity and that doubt into something that's hopefully positive, and we're finally at a point where we can share it with you all.
Yeah, nice. I'm glad you actually cleared that up for me because I was going to say, looking at the album title,
Mm.
Beyond the Stars, and if you look at the cover, which is like a being with surrounded by worlds exploding, you'd actually be forgiven for thinking it was a sci-fi album, but it's not.
Well, yeah, I think it's definitely got elements of that. I think, as Anthony said, it kind of outlines a person's, journey through life and the emotions they experience. But I think the overarching kind of takeaway from that is that we're all just a part of something much bigger than ourselves. And, whether you call that religion, the universe, just being human, however you kind of interpret it, I think, yeah, the album art is kind of, yeah, as you say, it's a bit sci-fi because it is that idea of there is so much beyond our physical selves, and there's so much that we kind of both receive and give back to the world around us throughout our life. So yeah, it's pretty big.
Nice. Now, to date, you've released the singles The Storm, Wayfinder, and Horizon. So are they a good sonic representation of what to expect, or are they just scratch the surface?
I think they're a good tasting platter is how we like to describe it. I think they tick all of the kind of musical points of the album. Obviously, you've got the Storm, which is just purely heavy and kind of dark and a bit more grim, and then you've got something like Wayfinder, which is this lighter kind of ballad, and then Horizon, which kind of sits in the middle of the two. I think across the three of them, they give a good representation of what to expect from the album, but there's definitely a lot more to uncover as people listen to it.
Nice. Now, the opening track, Life, is a beautiful composition. Like it's more or less an ambient whisper that for some reason made me think of the Hobbit village in Lord of the Rings. Like what was the idea behind opening with that particular song? I liked it.
With that one, we really wanted to encapsulate uh, the start of the universe in sonic form. That was the intent. Um, so it is like the cover art, a little bit sci-fi in the term, in regards to using a few synthesizers, etc., and a few different layerings. But the way the track evolves and with tension, it really builds into that first song quite nicely. So that's how we landed on that opening track, because we wanted it to be the representation of the beginning of the universe, beginning of the album, that kind of thing, beginning of someone's life, going back to the themes we talked about.
Yeah. And in the modern age of music, guys, where streaming and songs being played out of order is a normal these days, like, how much thought do you still put into the track listing on albums? Is it still a big deal?
For us, definitely. I think, we're all music fans first and foremost before, being a band. And so for me personally, I still love sitting down and listening to an album from start to finish. And I think that was very much the case with this album. We sat down and had a thought of how, it's going to flow nicely. So it doesn't get too fatiguing. There's all these moments of light and shade. And so that, you can sit down and listen to the whole album and listen to it on a loop, and it kind of, starts and finishes and is quite cyclic in that sense. So you can just, spin it on repeat if you're so inclined. So I think, but you're right, the streaming does, change the landscape a fair bit. But for us, we're still very much an album band. That's still something we take very, very seriously and put a lot of thought into.
I think it's worth acknowledging that our songs usually have long intros. This album, we've made those intros, some of them separate tracks. For example, our single Wayfinder on Spotify, it just starts straight on the acoustic guitar going into the flute motif. But in the video, we have the piano piece. That piano piece is actually a separate track on the album. So in that regards, we are still having our intros to songs, but also making the music a little bit more accessible for people not having to wait so long to get into the music, if that makes sense.
I get you. I'm normally one of those people, I don't mind listening to an album out of order, but yours, of course, I listen to from start to finish. And I think with albums like this, it is important to listen to them in the way they're intended, because this one, there's a lot of atmosphere, and it's got an epic build up to a lot of the songs, and it's like a sonic journey. I know that's a cliche term, but listening to that album was like a sonic journey, and I think you'd lose a bit of that if you didn't listen to it properly.
I'm glad to hear it. I'm glad that it was, received in the way it was intended. So, no, thank you for that. Appreciate it.
No worries at all. So, how would you say that Beyond the Stars differs musically then to your 2017 debut, Voyage into Eternity?
I can go first, Locke.
That
album, 2017, I wrote that one solely by myself between, say, 2013, 2016, so a long time ago. I know that I was trying to sound like all these other bands at the time. Just, I really want to sound like this, or really want to sound like that. This album, Beyond the Stars, it was a far more collaborative approach. So we had a lot of, input from our producer, Sam Vallon. We had a lot more collaboration in regards to how the songs work and the structures of the songs and, the lyrics and everything. And the way we recorded it was just a unique experience as well. And the songs just evolved and matured, and they really became Valhalore songs. So instead of sounding like other bands, like maybe the 2017 album kind of does, this album, I think it sounds like us. We're finding our sound, and it's really evident in this upcoming album.
You gonna add something to that, Locke? That's pretty fun. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think you pretty much nailed that. Yeah, I was just going to say the main thing was the collaborative approach, in the sense that, as Anthony mentioned, writing the first album was, a solo project for him. So he didn't have a band at that point. And now, we have a band. So there's, 6 of us to all throw ideas in and kind of bring our own skills and influences to the table. So that was the biggest shift. And as Anthony so beautifully mentioned, working with Sam Vallon and having, a fresh set of ears from outside of the band was, an invaluable aspect of this recording process and this writing process.
All right. Now, you've got Anna Murphy listed as a guest artist on the song Heart of the Sea. So introduce us to her and then what she brings to the song.
Oh, Anna Murphy is just one of my all-time favorite vocalists and musicians. And so for those of you who might not be aware of Anna, she used to be a part of the band Elvati, who for me personally were my gateway into kind of the folk metal world. I didn't know that those two worlds ever ever met folk music and metal music until I discovered Elvati. And since then, she's moved on to do her own solo project and is now part of her group, Cellar Darling, as well as a number of other projects. And yeah, when we were writing Heart of the Sea, it just, by this point in the album and you know, the song itself, we kind of realized that it lent itself to be a duet rather than just, you know, me singing for another 4 minutes by myself. And we kind of joked amongst ourselves of like, oh, this would be a great song for Anna Murphy. And so we kind of, you know, laughed about that, and we thought, oh, we'll never be able to reach out to her. She doesn't have a clue who we are, whatever. And then again, the joy of working with someone like Sam Vallon is he just overheard this conversation one day, and he said, oh, well, I've got her, you know, drummer's email address because we were meant to play shows together. Do you want me to see and kind of, you know, start this phone tree to essentially get in touch with her? And sure enough, we were able to reach out and send her the song, and you know, she graciously agreed to be a part of it. She said she really enjoyed the track, and so now we're absolutely thrilled to have her on a song, and I get to, you know, tick off that I've sung a duet with Anna Murphy off the old off the career highlight list. So it's pretty cool.
Fantastic. That's awesome. Cool. Now, musically, Valhalore have an interesting blend of melodic death metal plus power and symphonic metals infused with healthy doses of folk, as you say. Like, to be honest, it's an awkward mixing of genres that on paper shouldn't work, but it does. How?
Oh, I'm glad that you think it does, because yeah, you're right. It looks like they shouldn't. I think all music fundamentally, I mean, you know, if you just look at folk music as we probably all think of it from, you know, a medieval kind of sense, it was all to be performed live. It's all just storytelling and getting people to dance and drink and have a good time in a tavern or whatever. And you kind of look at that and you think, well, isn't that just what a modern heavy metal show is? You're just wanting to get a bunch of people together to headbang and to mosh and to have a good time and drink some beers and dance around with their mates. And so I suppose in that regard, that's how they kind of blend, is it's just this very energetic, you know, dance tempo-y type of music for the most part. And then I think the way that we're able to kind of blend them together a bit more, dare I say, seamlessly, is by incorporating the symphonic aspects, which kind of bridge that very stark gap between, you know, folk instruments and heavy metal instruments. And then, you know, people are far more familiar with symphonic metal, as we've heard since, you know, the 70s and 80s. So I think that by using those symphonic elements, we're kind of able to smooth the transition between the folk and the metal worlds.
Yeah, it feels a lot of that in between sonic space.
Yeah, cool. And how about in the creative process, guys? Like, how do you get the balance right? Like, how do you know if you're going too far in one direction or not far enough in another?
That's a great question. I think
we've struggled with this before. You go, Locke.
No, I think you're probably going to say exactly what I'm going to say, so that's all good.
I was just going to mention how sometimes we've leaned too far into the symphonic realm and we've lost the metal band side, so to speak. So we've had to really think about bringing that back, and to, you know, because we still want to be known as a metal band, because we are. So yeah, we, you know, I know when we did Legacy, that was a really big learning curve for us at the time, to really find that balance between just an orchestral track or a metal track. And yeah, you're right. Finding the balance and you know, finding space for so many different instruments that are just coming out of two speakers. It's really difficult.
And I think with the approach to Beyond the Stars as well, having learnt, you know, from our first record and from Legacy, as Anthony mentioned, I think the approach this time was far more to prioritize the band aspects of the songwriting, which I know sounds dumb, but you know, Anthony and I, we love our classical arrangements and our folk music and all of that. So we do tend to get a bit carried away with orchestrations and things. Whereas this time we, you know, really made a point to emphasize the band stuff and what will ultimately be performed live. And then everything else is more secondary to that, rather than it all kind of happening at the same time in the writing process.
Now, speaking of live, Valhalore start a run of 4 shows to promote the album, kicking off in Sydney and Melbourne over the weekend of May 16 and 17. Then Brisbane and Gold Coast the weekend after. So what can fans expect from those shows? How much the new album be playing?
We're playing most of it. I think there's only a couple of songs that don't quite make the cut this time around, because we want to keep it, you know, a tight and energetic show. And, you know, we're bringing a lot of bells and whistles and kind of upping the ante, so to speak. We always like to push ourselves and to go bigger and better each time. So this is going to be our most, I guess, for lack of a better term, kind of theatrical show to date and our biggest kind of production show to date. So, with an absolutely jam-packed set list, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's just, we just absolutely love performing and being on the road. That's our happy place. We love writing and recording, but ultimately there's nothing better than getting on a stage and being able to engage with the fans and our friends one-on-one.
I was going to say, I just can't wait to get up there and actually just give back to people. Only because this album's coming out 8 years after our first album. Like that's a long wait. That's time to territories of waiting time. You know what I mean? So I can't wait to really, as Lockie mentioned, we're going all out with our production. It's looking to be our biggest headlines, so far. I really can't wait to just give a really authentic and awesome experience for people, and just to really give back and say thank you for sticking around.
Now, we spoke before about the flow of the album and the track listing because of the atmospherics and stuff. So you mentioned you're going to be playing a lot of the album live. So does that mean you have to play it in the same order as the album to keep that flow going, or would it be disjointed if you chopped it up?
Yeah, this was something that we kind of were figuring out when we were putting the show together and figuring out the set list. But I think the way we've done it, we've taken the flow of the album, but incorporated some older songs and broken it up in such a way that, there's the album listening experience in the sense of, the flow that you mentioned when you sit down and listen to it. And then we've got the album kind of, I guess, live experience where you're able to keep the energy up a bit more and kind of pick your moments of light and shade in a slightly different spot to keep fans engaged in a live setting. So the short answer is yes, it's broken up, but I think we've done it in such a way that it makes for a fun live show.
Right, nice. Now, before I let you go, guys, the one major difference between the last time we spoke and now is I've introduced a little segment called Photobomb, which means before I speak to you, I'll troll through your social media and I'll find a couple of photos that I want to know more about.
All right.
I found this. The first one's pretty cool. The second one, I'm not sure if you're going to like, but the first one,
I have a gut feeling.
That's a hell of a lot of people to fit in one stairwell.
Oh, mate, that was
tight.
That was tight. Yeah, that was crazy. That was such a fun show.
It looks like you got some pretty cool people there with you.
Yeah, well, we'd finished our show at this point, and they were just about to go on stage, and then suddenly all of our phones started just going off frantically, and it was Gary, our sound guy at the front there, just messaging us being like, Arch Enemy want to have a photo with you, get backstage right now. We're like, what do you mean they want to have a photo with us? It was this really weird, like, surreal moment. And this was our final show together, I think, after being together for a week, and they were just the loveliest group of people. So yeah, no, I'm glad that we managed to get a photo together. It was a really, really cool night.
Cool lads photo.
Yeah.
All right, the second one, you say you think you might know what it could be. I reckon it could be too. Like you can tell me to mind my own business here, but I'm pretty sure they say you can kiss.
Yeah, I knew this was coming.
We broke the internet with this one. Oh dear.
We've been talking about being authentic all throughout our chat this morning, and here we go.
Oh dear.
I like the way you're palming the bride off, though. Nothing to see here.
Oh dear, poor Sophie. No, Sophie's used to the bromance between the two of us. No, this was just a silly, fun photo just for the hell of it. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that other than I'm glad that this photo still exists on the internet.
We're all progressive, right, guys? It's fine.
Sure, yeah, why not?
I just worried more about Sophie. She looks like she's plotting her revenge already.
Oh yeah, well yeah.
She looks exhausted.
Yeah, exhausted of our bullshit, mate.
Tell me honestly, was that staged, or did someone just happen to take that at the right time?
Oh, oh, look, it's anyone's guess. No, definitely staged, but no, it was just a funny little something different for the old wedding album. Yeah.
Indeed. All right, gentlemen. Well, thanks for your time. Pleasure as always. Valhalore release a new album, Beyond the Stars, on April the 11th. And if you're a fan of these guys, you're going to love this album. And if you're not a fan, this should fucking make you one. So congratulations, guys. And I'll come along to the Brisbane or Gold Coast show.
Amazing. Awesome, thank you so much. We'll look forward to seeing you there.